Jim Hill sponsors Joshua versus Molina on Sky Sports Box Office.
James Hill, IFL TV, in association with McDONNELL, Gym BADOU. With me, I've got trainer Jim McDonnell. We're here in camp ahead of James DeGALE's unification clash against BADOU Jack. Firstly, how are you, Jim? You all right?
All good, my friend. Always good for seeing you.
Good seeing you, mate. I've got to say, that's one of the most intense media workouts I've seen. You guys actually go through the full gears of motions of what you normally do. Fantastic to see.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big fight. It's a serious situation. Can't afford no days off. Can't afford no time out. So I say to James all the time, the media's got to just fit in with the real life and just keep it real. So that was a real workout where James, you see him, he went through the gears and he done all the stuff it takes to get in the tight shape that he gets in. So yeah, he's on this one, as he calls it, hardcore.
When he fought the likes of Paraban, even Porky Medina, he looked like he didn't have that fear factor. As much as he was fit and up for the fights, he mentally just seemed like he was comfortable to go through the gears with him. For BADOU Jack and for the WBC belt, has that got him up for that? Has that given him that extra gear?
Yeah, I think them fights you mentioned, particularly the fight against the Mexican kid, I think James was physically trained as hard as ever, but mentally, I was saying Medina's got 30 knockouts, James, you've got to be switched on. But it was like Jim, levels. So he never really went into that fight scared with a fear factor. BADOU Jack's a hell of a good fighter, he's WBC champion, and James knows the stakes are high. So for this fight, he's training physically, but he's also training mentally, and he's just like a different animal. In fact, I can honestly say, even the DeGALE fight, this is the most seriously switched on James DeGALE I've ever seen.
You mentioned in this camp that he's been breaking PB records for some of the things you guys have been doing. So that is testament to how hard and how much effort he's been putting in, isn't it?
Well, the mad thing is, I said to James many years ago about the great Marvin Hagler, that when he became champion of the world, he said that he'll prepare for every defence like a challenger. And James's mentality is absolutely identical to Hagler's. His whole mentality, the way he's pushing new numbers, pushing new targets, like breaking pacemakers' hearts, is unbelievable. He's really, and there must be something in certain people, and James is one of them people. He gets that extra bit out of himself mentally because he has, for this camp, he's been very impressive.
We've seen Callum Smith in action on Saturday against Luke Blackledge, his first defence of the British title. He's mandatory challenger to face the winner of James DeGALE versus BADOU Jack. How highly do you rate Callum Smith as a trainer, and do you think that fight will be massive here in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. Callum Smith's a fantastic fighter. Callum Smith's a class act, a lovely kid, lovely family, all good fighters, and Callum Smith's from a good breed. So, and obviously he's in a position of mandatory to fight the winner of this fight between BADOU Jack and James. And in the UK, it'd be a massive fight. Everyone would get glued into it, and I know James would love it. It's very late. Like with James, the brighter the lights, the better you'll see, and that would be a very, very bright light.
Saturday just gone, we saw one of the contenders for Fight of the Year in Dillian White versus Derek Chisora. Did you happen to see the fight, Jim? And if so, what were your thoughts on it?
All I can say is I'm glad I never missed it. For me, I go right back to watching Riddick Bowe in some of his classics, and for me, that was up there with him. I just thought it was
Beau Holyfield.
Beau Holyfield. It was like, that's what it was like. The flashback was in my mind. I was trying to think of fights to match it. That's the example, Beau Holyfield. And I just think both fighters deserve a big round of applause. Credit to the sport. After all the madness in the build-up, the actual fight surpassed everyone's expectations. And I think, you know what? I'd be first in the queue for the rematch. It was just brilliant.
We saw Anthony Joshua retain his IBF world title in brutal fashion, destroying Eric Molina. Was you expecting anything different from that fight, Jim?
Anthony Joshua is the real deal. Anthony Joshua is an Olympic gold medalist, and he's just a class act. Anyone they put in front of him at the moment, he's demolishing. I mean, he's got big tests ahead, obviously, and I'm sure Anthony's aware of that. But he's switched on. You can see everything he does in training. Like he's on point. He's mentally a very strong person, and I think he's great for British boxing. And long way it'll continue.
Your old mate Shannon Briggs. What people, mate, on the IFL TV don't know, you lived with Shannon Briggs many moons ago out in the States. He was over the weekend causing mass carnage, as always, getting there, inciting the crowd, and let's go champ. And it's great. We love him at IFL TV. What are your thoughts on Shannon Briggs?
Let me tell you something about Shannon Briggs. When you've lived with a man, right, it is let's go champ. The guy is 100 miles an hour. He's one of the nicest people you could ever meet. He's charismatic, he's funny, but he's loyal, he's honest, and he's a brilliant fighter. And he's got unbelievable punching power. And you know what? He's got a chance against any heavyweight because he just punches so hard. And he's fearless as well. So yeah, Shannon Briggs is a good pal. put me up, looked after me, drove me here and everywhere. Shannon Briggs is a great guy.
Not many people can say they went over to the States and lived with Shannon Briggs in his heyday as well.
Yeah.
When he was sort of...
Yeah, I stayed with Shannon for a long time, and it was just a great experience. And like, he's such a great guy. Like, when he put us up in his house was just unreal. He had everything cooking for us. He'd take us out everywhere, took us round the town, take us out on the town, used to run with us. He's just honestly, I just can't say never. He's like family. He's just brilliant guy, and I'll always love Shannon.
First time we met him here, when we went and met him, the first thing he said was, "I gotta see Jim. Take me to see Jim." He actually was really insane to come and see you.
Yeah,
he needed to come and see you.
He come down the gym, and when he walked in, he gave me the biggest hug and lift you've ever seen, and it was like seeing one of your family. He's just such a great guy, and it's the things he does. Forget the Let's Go champ and the brother. Outside of that, if you see the stuff Shannon does behind the scenes, especially back home where he's from, he's such an honest, lovely person. I've got all the time in the world with Shannon Briggs, a real good man.
While we're on the heavyweight division, I want to talk about David Haye v Tony Bellew. Very interesting matchup in a lot of people's eyes, and it's interesting to see how Tony Bellew deals with that extra weight, that extra power David Haye's carrying as well. How have you seen that fight playing out?
Do you know what? It's an intriguing fight. You got David Haye is a very accurate puncher and a very big puncher, and Tony Bellew's also got the equaliser. Tony Bellew's a great puncher, and it ain't the fight that everyone thinks. I think it's going to be a very game of cat and mouse, because both guys have got to be aware of the other guy's power. So, both guys have got to be switched on. Against David is the fact that he's a lot of inactivity, and you can only get that through ring action. So Tony's coming to the ring razor sharp, so that could give him an advantage in that area. David Haye's history, you look back at the people he's boxed and beat, then you start thinking, but it's a great fight, and I think both guys are capable of winning it. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion either way.
Talk to me about the rest of the stable. Who else is sort of coming out, and who else is sort of rebuilding? We see unfortunate defeat for Jake Paul recently as well. No doubt he'll be regrouping and rebuilding for 2017.
I'm glad you mentioned Jake. Jake was one of the first person I was going to mention. Every fighter has tests in their life, and it's not just about the winning; it's about how you deal with the defeat. And I'll give you examples of fighters. My great friend Duke McKenzie, I think he'll tell you, early in his amateur career, he had like a bad fight, and he got on to win X amount of world titles. You look at Lennox Lewis, got like taken out in a round.
Johnny Nelson.
Johnny Nelson went on to be fantastic. Amir Khan, who went on to do wonderful things. So what all these guys have got is a thing called mentality. They've sat down, they've dusted themselves down, they've gone back to the drawing board, they ain't cried over spilt milk, they've dealt with the situation, they've come back and conquered the world. And I honestly believe that with the ability that Jake's got, and the mentality and his determination, that Jake could do exactly the same thing. And God willing, he'll come back stronger than ever.
Saw a good win on Saturday for one of the young fighters, Florian Cardos, who was out in Tulworth as well. How have you ended up working with Florian? Talk us through that.
It's a mad situation. Florian was an outstanding amateur who I knew on the circuit for many years, and Florian was introduced to me by a friend, and it was absolutely like put it together. So this guy's a great talent, and my man knows boxing. And I thought, what? So looked at him coming, and he's been absolutely mustard. And to go in the gym, I mean, you got someone like Reece Bellotti. I've got to mention Reece.
I was going to come to the bomb of Bellotti.
When you look at talent, you look at that kid in the background, and he's just waiting to explode. He's such a brilliant technical boxer. 2 ABA titles behind him. You've got people in the gym like James DeGALE they can look up to. Jake Ball, great prospect. Reece Bellotti, great prospect. And man, we just mentioned Florian. All them boys are gelling together, all working. They all feed off each other and bounce each other, with James being the leader of the gang. So they look at James, and he's their inspiration.
Do you think Florian could be a 15-round fighter one day if he works hard?
I'm not voting out of 20 rounds.
I'm only playing, by the way, Jim. Don't give me a body shot.
You're a good 15-round fighter.
On that note, I appreciate you giving me some time.
My friend,
Jim.
thank you very much.
Always good to get you back on the channel, mate. And
cheers,
if
mate.
we don't see you before we go out, one of us will be out there. Enjoy your Christmas, enjoy Miami.
As James DeGALE would say, come out there, enjoy it, see history being made, watch the unification, and get behind James DeGALE.
We've been there a lot of times so far, so I'm sure one of us will be out there in January.
Top man, appreciate it.
Cheers, Jim.
Cheers, mate.